welcome Pankaj Shroff to the stage, please?
What I'm going to talk about today is, we heard quite a bit about the challenges facing and the real numbers actually behind it, thanks to a lot of the work done by the STL group. And what I'm going to talk about is really what can we do about it, and perhaps increase the value by investing in smart networks and smart services, and what are the sorts of returns that can be expected or anticipated based on the work that STL has done in this area. Really, the real issue is that today the model is actually broken, and it's not just for the operators. I mean, clearly the numbers suggest that the expenses on keeping up with the data demand are going up. But at the same time, because of that same demand, there's congested networks, and always operators having to fight that. And then there's a lot of over-the-top traffic and not enough incremental revenue generated from it. And so therefore, things are not in control. But at the same time, it's not as happy a situation for others as well in this ecosystem. In fact, if you look at it, as an end user, I have to sign up with different service providers, over-the-top service providers, with my own little identity and login and things like that. My personal data fragmented all over the place. I don't have as consistent a quality of experience as I was used to in a walled garden service like a voice or messaging. And clearly there's concerns around who is watching. Google is tracking me where I am and things like that. So even from an end user's perspective, it's not necessarily a win-win situation. And if you look at the most important trend in today's communications ecosystem, the cloud-based communications, and also cloud computing in general, cloud providers are also, while it is still a nascent industry, there is a lot of exploding demand. It's not clear if the revenues are going to be there for even the cloud-based application developers and application providers, because there's a ceiling on revenues, primarily because there is no certainty whether the network can actually deliver the kinds of quality of experience and QoS that services that are being offered over the top will require. And of course, because of the same kind of privacy concerns and a lot of the one-sided business and revenue models that the likes of Google have promoted through advertising and things like that, there's this overall lack of trust that, what are you going to do with my personal data here if I go with you, Mr. Over-the-top provider? And so what can we do about it? How can we transform this over-the-top delivery ecosystem, which is basically down this track, going as fast as it can towards a potentially a lose-lose-lose situation. And Tellabs basically started off with the hypothesis that while there are smart devices and smart endpoints, those endpoints cannot completely control the network, and the network actually needs investment in terms of making it smarter, and not only to keep up with the smart devices, but also to provide better control and better visibility and better optimization and better management of the network infrastructure itself. Not just to keep up, but also build a smart platform to then launch smarter services on top of that. So what does that really mean? Visibility, control, optimization, monetization. What does that really mean? So there's sort of these two broad categories of solutions that we've sort of discovered in this process. One is that there's a low-hanging fruit here. There's diversity of applications. There's a proliferation of app stores and smartphones and smart tablets. It used to be that in the old days, glory days of telecom, you could basically engineer your network and say, a network engineer could basically say, I'm expecting this much busy hour call attempts, and these are the number of circuits I'm going to deploy, and this is the over provisioning for my network, and this is the expected sort of return on my investment. Well, today, there is no one killer app. In fact, there's a multiplicity of applications. Not only that, the diversity of usage is phenomenal. the peaks and troughs in your radio utilization are not as predictable as they used to be. And so what's lacking is the visibility. And so what can operators do? Operators can invest in a smarter network by increasing the visibility, ability to detect these types of application flows and provide that visibility on a simple dashboard, and then perhaps either manually or in an automated fashion react to that. It's not just about voice circuit engineering anymore. It's really application engineering, and it's policy driven. If you are looking to move away from the flat, all-you-can-eat data models that have fueled this data demand growth, then policy plays a fairly large role here, and policy-driven application engineering to offer tiered services and even perhaps tiered quality of services that are tied to individual application types. And finally, services and applications do not reside in a vacuum. There's equally malignant elements in this ecosystem that might either want to bring your networks down or attack personal data that's stored on these devices. And so therefore, there's a very valuable service that can be built on top of this is in terms of security services. And then the second category that we looked at is in the monetization space. What can operators do? So this is sort of the smart networks is almost like a no-brainer. This is something that you have to invest in just to shore up your existing utility or pipe sort of business. And we'll get to that in a moment why we call it a utility. And then there's the monetization aspect, which we kind of bundle in under the heading of smart services, which now starts taking you into this new frontier, the great game, like Simon likes to call it, where now you can either choose to compete or enter into a co-opetition by enabling third-party applications, by building out cloud application accelerators or CDN and application delivery networks closer to the customer, both your fixed network edge as well as mobile network edge. And then finally, leveraging that hidden asset that has not been tapped into so far in your networks, sort of like the oil rush days where it's underneath the ground still, which is this asset of personalized data and subscriber aware and addressable advertising services. So that's sort of our vision behind what are the categories in which operators can invest, both as a low-hanging fruit from a smart networks perspective as well as smart services. And so what does that mean? Well, this term, dumb pipes, has been thrown around quite a bit, And so we decided not to actually adhere to that rhetoric anymore because it really doesn't mean anything. It's kind of a acceptance, resignation that, yeah, well, we are dumb pipes. And Chris kind of pointed out the example of the TV character there. And we said, is there some way we can actually put a number behind it? And we commissioned this study and said, with STL partners, and said, what is the actual cash return on investments for operators today? Right, and we chose this particular metric because that's really the metric that you cannot manipulate very easily. Earnings can be manipulated quite easily, but cash returns are, cash is king. So what this study did was to discover, first of all, it was done on a global scale and also with enough in-depth of about 12 operators as case studies. And the focus was, what is the nature of smart? And what is the value that building smarter networks and launching smarter services can bring to operators? And we measured that based on this metric. And the unanimous or sort of the resounding conclusion of the study is that absolutely more intelligent networks will be a key driver for shareholder value. And the reason we call these, clearly that the word dumb pipe is thrown around, but the fact still remains is that a typical utility, typical telco operator cash returns on invested capital are in the same ballpark, in the same range as a utility, like a gas pipe company or a electricity company, around the range of 5 to 7%. And that's the astounding aspect of this study, that how can you now take that and boost that cash return to levels that are comparable more with some of the high growth, high flying, over-the-top threats that you face today, like the Googles and companies like that. So, this is one of my favorite charts in the study, is that in the survey of 100 operators, what's amazing is that almost everybody agrees that something needs to be done. A lot of operators absolutely agree on housekeeping, sort of housekeeping category. We absolutely have to find better ways to run our networks efficiently. But at the same time, we need to invest in smarter networks. We have to get that piece right. For example, the visibility example that I gave earlier, or security, or higher, better, more efficient content delivery. And then, while there is agreement and awareness that we have to do something, and this was actually quite interesting because earlier Simon did this survey, the spot survey with your clickers, and it was also reflective of the same sort of thing where there's awareness that I know I need to do something with smart services, but when, over what time frame, and what's my first step in it is not quite clear, and whether or not I will succeed. What is my probability of success here is not quite clear. And so we think that there is a low-hanging fruit here. There is a low-hanging fruit in the next 6 to 18-month time frame. Majority of operators can actually immediately start investing in smarter networks, bring more visibility, more optimization, and better content delivery in their networks, but at the same time be able to leverage that investment then in the longer run by building out smarter services. And finally, I'll conclude with this slide, which is that the key bottom line results from the investments are, we have the happy piper scenario, which is sort of where everybody seems to have most comfort zone in terms of transforming themselves, where this is where we are today. So if we did nothing at all, that's where we would probably stay, and maybe worse. But with simple and low-hanging fruit, incremental investments in smarter networks, you have the capability now to have a significant measurable boost in cash returns. And finally, with smart services, you have the ability to boost those cash returns even further. And I'll just close with this win-win-win sort of a slide, where now with this kind of investment, not only are you running your networks more efficiently and controlling expenses, capital expenditure, but also tapping into new revenue streams and providing a real value, a real service to the end users who can uniformly and universally access services at a high quality and a high quality of experience, and participate in the growth of cloud-based economics. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Can we say thank you to Pankaj? Thank you.